The bathroom door exploded inward with a force that made the hinges scream. Sophia's heart stopped as Dante Moretti filled the doorway, his 6'3" frame blocking any hope of escape. In his hand, like damning evidence at a trial, he held the positive pregnancy test she'd buried under tissues and cotton balls not 20 minutes ago. How long? His voice was deadly quiet, the kind of calm that preceded hurricanes. How long were you planning to hide my child? Sophia's back pressed against the cold marble sink, her hands trembling as she gripped the counter edge. She'd known this moment would come eventually. She just hadn't expected it to come today, in her own apartment, with Dante's dark eyes burning into her soul, like he could see every secret she'd ever kept. I just found out, she whispered, hating how small her voice sounded. 2 hours ago. 2 hours. He took a step closer, and the scent of his cologne, expensive and woodsy, filled her lungs. 2 hours, and you already threw it in the trash like it meant nothing. That's not... Her throat tightened. I was scared, Dante. What did you expect me to do? We agreed this was temporary. We agreed no strings, no complications, no... This changes everything. He dropped the test on the counter beside her, the 2 pink lines facing up like an accusation. Did you honestly think I wouldn't find out? That you could just disappear one day, and I wouldn't turn this entire city upside down looking for you? She had thought exactly that, actually. It was the plan she'd been forming in her mind, even as she watched those pink lines appear. Take the money she'd saved from her bookstore job, buy a bus ticket to Portland or Seattle, somewhere far from New York and the Moretti Empire. Raise her baby alone, safe from the violence that followed Dante like a shadow. But looking at him now, at the barely controlled fury and something else in his expression, something that looked almost like hurt, she realized how naive that plan had been. Dante Moretti didn't let things go. He definitely didn't let people go. I thought, she started, then stopped, trying to find words that wouldn't make this worse. You have enemies, real ones, the kind that plant car bombs and shoot people in restaurants. What kind of life would this baby have, growing up in that world? Something flickered across his face. For just a moment, the notorious crime lord who'd inherited his father's empire at 25 looked almost vulnerable. Then the mask returned, hard and unyielding. The kind of life where they're protected, he said. Where anyone who even thinks about touching what's mine ends up at the bottom of the Hudson River. That's not protection, Dante. That's reality. He moved closer still, until she could feel the heat radiating from his body. My reality. And now yours, whether you like it or not. His hand came up to rest on the counter beside her hip, caging her in. Tell me the truth. Were you going to run? She couldn't lie to him. She'd never been good at lying, which was probably why she'd fallen for a man who dealt in deception and violence for a living. Her silence was answer enough. His jaw tightened. Where would you have gone? Does it matter? You found the test before I could even think it through. It matters, he said softly, dangerously. Because you need to understand something, Sophia. There is nowhere on this earth you could go that I wouldn't find you. Nowhere you could hide my child from me. I own this city. I have connections in every major city in the world. Did you really think a bus ticket and a few $100s would be enough? The scary part was she had thought that. She'd thought if she was careful, if she paid cash and kept her head down, she could just fade away. But she'd underestimated him. Again. I wanted to give our baby a normal life, she said, tears pricking her eyes. Is that so terrible? Normal? He laughed, but there was no humor in it. Sophia, the moment you walked into my club 6 months ago, normal stopped being an option for you. The moment you smiled at me from across that bar, you sealed your fate. And now, his free hand moved to hover over her still flat stomach, not quite touching. Now you're carrying my heir, the next generation of the Moretti family. Do you have any idea what that means? She did, actually. It meant a life of armed guards and bulletproof cars. It meant looking over her shoulder every time she left the house. It meant raising a child who would inherit an empire built on blood and money. "I can't do this," she whispered. "I'm not strong enough for your world, Dante." His hand finally touched her stomach, palm warm through her thin t-shirt. "You're stronger than you think. You'd have to be, to make me feel the things I feel." Her breath caught. In 6 months of heated encounters, of stolen nights and secret afternoons, Dante had never said anything like that. He'd been passionate, possessive, insatiable, but never vulnerable. Never soft. "What things?" she asked, barely audible. "Things that make me weak." He leaned in, his forehead nearly touching hers. "Things that make me lie awake at night, thinking about you instead of business. Things that make me want to burn the world down if anyone looks at you wrong." His thumb stroked gently across her stomach. "And now you're telling me you want to take my child? And run? To deprive me of the only real thing I've had in my life since my mother died?" The pain in his voice undid her. This was the Dante she'd glimpsed in rare moments, the one who'd told her about growing up in his father's shadow, about watching his mother waste away from cancer while his father was too busy with business to say goodbye. The one who'd held her after nightmares and made her breakfast when she stayed over, who'd learned she liked exactly 3 sugars in her coffee and never forgot. "I'm scared," she admitted. "Not of you. Of everything else. Of raising a child who might grow up to be like your father. Of losing them the way your mother lost you to this life. My child will be nothing like my father." The words came out sharp, definite. "I'll make sure of it. And you," he pulled back enough to look into her eyes, "you're not going anywhere. Do you understand me? You can't just decide that. I can, and I am." His hand moved from her stomach to cup her face, thumb brushing away a tear she hadn't realized had fallen. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to pack a bag, essential items only. Everything else will be moved to my penthouse tomorrow. Dante, you're going to move in with me where I can protect you properly. You're going to let me hire the best obstetrician in New York, and you're going to stop thinking about running, because I promise you, Sophia, I will always find you. Always." It should have scared her, the possessive intensity in his voice. Instead, it made something warm bloom in her chest, something dangerous and addictive. "What if I say no?" His smile was slow, predatory. "Then I'll have your apartment cleaned out by morning anyway. I'm giving you the illusion of choice because I know you like to feel independent. But make no mistake, you are mine. You've been mine since the night you let me take you home from the club. And that baby," his hand returned to her stomach, "is mine too. You're being completely unreasonable. I'm being protective." His lips brushed her forehead, achingly gentle for a man who'd once broken someone's arm for bumping into her at a restaurant. "There's a difference." "Is there? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you're taking over my life." "I am taking over your life," he agreed. "But only because you tried to throw away the best thing that's ever happened to either of us." "You don't know that this baby is the best thing." "I know," he interrupted, "that I've spent 32 years not caring if I lived or died, building my empire, eliminating my enemies, going through the motions because that's what a Moretti does. And then you walked into my life with your shy smiles and your book recommendations and your complete refusal to be impressed by my money or my power. For the first time, I wanted to live. Not just survive, but actually live. Come home to someone. Build something that wasn't about business or blood. And now you're giving me that. A family. A real family." Sophia's vision blurred with tears. "You never said any of this before. I never had to face losing you before." His thumb traced her jawline. "The thought of you out there, alone, raising my child without me, not letting me provide for you, protect you, be a father." He stopped, jaw working. It's not an option. I won't allow it. And if the baby changes things between us, if we can't make this work, then we figure it out. Together. He leaned down, lips hovering over hers. But you don't get to make that decision unilaterally. You don't get to hide something this important from me. Understood? Before she could answer, his lips captured hers in a kiss that was both demanding and reverent. His hand cradled the back of her head while the other stayed protective over her stomach, and Sophia felt her carefully constructed walls crumbling. She'd been so stupid to think she could leave him. So naive to believe her heart wasn't already completely his. When he pulled back, they were both breathing hard. "Pack your bag," he said again, softer this time. "Please." The please undid her completely. She nodded, not trusting her voice. 20 minutes later, she watched him load her overnight bag into his black Mercedes, the one with bulletproof windows and armor plating that she pretended not to notice. The city lights reflected off the windshield as they pulled away from her apartment building, the place where she'd lived for 3 years before Dante Moretti turned her world upside down. "What about my bookstore?" she asked as they navigated through Manhattan traffic. "I can't just abandon it." "You're not abandoning anything. I'll have someone manage it for you until after the baby comes. Then, if you want to go back to work, we'll arrange security." Security at a bookstore seems excessive. His hand found hers across the console. "Security around my family is never excessive. You'll understand that better once the baby arrives." She turned to look at his profile, illuminated by passing streetlights. Strong jaw, straight nose, dark hair that curled slightly at his collar. He was beautiful in the way dangerous things were beautiful, captivating and terrifying in equal measure. "Are we family now?" she asked quietly. He glanced at her, something fierce in his expression. "We've been family since the night you told me about your mother's death, and I told you about mine. This," he squeezed her hand, "just makes it official." The penthouse was exactly as she remembered from the few times she'd been there before, all floor-to-ceiling windows and modern furniture and artwork that probably cost more than she made in a year. But tonight, Dante led her past the living room to a hallway she'd never explored. "This is the master bedroom," he said, pushing open a door to reveal a space larger than her entire apartment had been. A massive bed dominated the room, covered in dark gray linens that looked obscenely soft. "There's a guest room if you'd prefer your own space, but—" "I'll stay with you," she interrupted. She'd never spent a full night with him before. Their arrangement had always been temporary, a few stolen hours here and there. But if she was really doing this, really letting herself be pulled into his world, she might as well commit fully. Something like relief crossed his face. "Good. Because I'm not sure I could sleep knowing you were in another room, possibly still thinking about running." "I'm not going to run, Dante." "I know. Because you understand now what would happen if you tried." He set her bag on an upholstered bench at the foot of the bed. "But also because you want this. Us. You're just scared to admit it." He was right, damn him. She'd been half in love with him for months, even knowing what he was, what he did, even knowing she should stay away. "I want our baby to be safe," she said instead of confirming his statement. "Our baby will be the safest child in New York. I guarantee it." He crossed to her, hands settling on her waist. "But I need you to promise me something." "What?" "No more secrets. No more hiding things from me. If you're scared, tell me. If you need something, ask. If you're having second thoughts about any of this, we talk about it. But no more running. No more making decisions about our child without me. Deal?" She searched his face, looking for any sign of deception, any hint that this was just about control and possession. But all she saw was raw honesty, and something that looked terrifyingly like love. "Deal," she whispered. He kissed her then, slow and deep, like he was sealing a promise. When he pulled back, his forehead rested against hers. "I'm going to marry you," he said. Not a question. A statement of fact. Her heart stuttered. Dante, not tonight, not tomorrow, but soon, before the baby comes. Because I want them to have my name, yes. But more than that, I want everyone to know you're mine. Completely, legally, irrevocably mine. You're insane. About you? Absolutely. His smile was crooked, almost boyish. Say yes, Sophia. You haven't actually asked me a question. Because we both know what your answer will be. His hands slid up to frame her face. You're already mine. You've been mine since the beginning. The wedding is just paperwork. The terrifying thing was, he wasn't wrong. She'd been his from the moment he'd smiled at her across that bar, from the first time he'd made her laugh, from every early morning conversation and late-night confession. She'd just been too afraid to acknowledge it. Yes, she said, and watched his eyes darken with satisfaction. But I want a say in the wedding plans, and I'm not changing my name to Moretti unless... You'll take my name, he interrupted, because it offers you protection. Everyone in this city knows better than to cross a Moretti, but we can hyphenate if that makes you feel better. How generous of you, she said dryly. I'm a very generous man. You'll learn that. His hands dropped to her waist, pulling her flush against him. Now, let me show you exactly how grateful I am that you're staying. That night, in his massive bed overlooking the city, Dante made love to her like she was precious, fragile, worshipped. His hands were careful over her stomach, his kisses reverent, and when she fell asleep hours later, it was to the sound of him whispering promises against her skin, promises of protection, of family, of forever. She woke to sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows and the smell of coffee. For a disorienting moment, she forgot where she was. Then memory returned, along with a flutter of anxiety. She'd really done it. Agreed to marry a Mafia boss. Agreed to raise a child in his world. Good morning, future Mrs. Moretti. She turned to find Dante in the doorway, fully dressed in an expensive suit, holding a mug of coffee and a plate of toast. He looked like he'd been up for hours, but his hair was still slightly mussed from sleep. And the sight made her heart clench. Is that decaf? She asked, eyeing the coffee suspiciously. Herbal tea, actually. Coffee isn't good for the baby. At her surprised look, he shrugged. I called my doctor at 6 this morning. Got a full list of things you should and shouldn't be consuming. There's also a prenatal vitamin on the nightstand. She didn't know whether to be touched or annoyed by his high-handedness. You called your doctor at 6 in the morning? He's paid very well to be available whenever I need him. Besides, he's going to be your doctor too. Dr. Chen, best obstetrician on the East Coast. I've scheduled your first appointment for tomorrow. Tomorrow? Dante, I can't just... You don't have the bookstore to worry about anymore, remember? Marco is handling it. He set the tea and toast on the nightstand, then sat on the edge of the bed. I know this is a lot. I know I'm overwhelming you. But let me do this. Let me take care of you. The earnestness in his voice melted her resistance. Okay, but I want to at least call Marco myself, make sure he understands how the inventory system works. Already arranged. He'll be here at 10 for a briefing. Dante's hand found her stomach again, that gesture already becoming familiar. How are you feeling? Any morning sickness? A little queasy, but nothing terrible. Tell me if that changes. Dr. Chen said there are medications if it gets bad. He paused, something uncertain crossing his face. I want to tell my family. Today. Her stomach dropped. Your family? Dante, I've never even met them. Which is a mistake I should have corrected months ago. He squeezed her hand. Sunday dinners are mandatory for the Morettis. Everyone will be there. My grandmother, my uncle, my cousins. They'll want to meet you, especially once they hear about the baby. And what if they don't approve? His expression hardened. Then they'll learn to. You're mine, Sophia. Nothing and no one will change that. The possessiveness should have bothered her. Instead, it made her feel safe in a way she hadn't felt since her mother died 5 years ago. Like she finally belonged somewhere, to someone. "Okay," she said. "But I need to go shopping first. I don't have anything appropriate to wear to meet your family." "Already taken care of. I had my assistant send over a selection of dresses. They're in the closet." At her exasperated look, he grinned. "What?" "I'm efficient. You're controlling. Same thing." He leaned in to kiss her forehead. "Now drink your tea and eat something. I have a meeting at the office, but I'll be back by noon to take you to lunch." "I don't need you to take me to lunch, Dante. I'm perfectly capable of... Sophia." His voice dropped to that dangerous softness again. "Where you go, my security goes. At least until after the baby is born. This isn't negotiable. So I'm just supposed to have armed men following me around everywhere? You won't even notice them. They're very good at being discreet." He stood, buttoning his suit jacket. "Trust me on this, please." There was that please again, the magic word that made her defenses crumble. She sighed. "Fine, but they stay outside when I'm shopping for baby things." "I'm not having security guards hovering while I look at onesies." His smile was blinding. "Deal. Though I'm coming with you for that particular shopping trip. You want to shop for baby clothes? I want to do everything with you. Get used to it." He pressed one more kiss to her lips, quick and possessive. "I'll see you at noon. Don't even think about leaving this building without calling me first." After he left, Sophia lay in bed for a long moment, processing everything that had happened in the last 24 hours. Yesterday morning, she'd been a bookstore owner with a secret pregnancy and a half-formed escape plan. Now she was living with Dante Moretti, engaged to be married, and about to meet his entire family. It was insane. All of it. But as she got up and found the closet full of designer dresses, all in her size, all in colors and styles she loved, she couldn't help smiling. Dante might be overwhelming and possessive and completely impossible, but he was also attentive and protective, and somehow, against all odds, hers. Marco arrived at 10 exactly, a nervous young man with earnest eyes who clearly worshipped Dante. Sophia spent an hour going over the bookstore's systems with him, making sure he understood her regular customers' preferences and the special orders she had pending. "Mr. Moretti said to tell you not to worry about anything," Marco assured her as he was leaving. "Your store is in good hands. And congratulations, by the way, on the baby." She blinked. "How do you—" "Mr. Moretti told his entire staff this morning. Said anyone who leaked the information to the press would answer to him personally." Marco grinned. "We're all really happy for you both." After he left, Sophia called Dante immediately. "You told your staff?" "Of course I did. They needed to know why security protocols are being updated." She could hear the smile in his voice. "Why? Is that a problem?" I'm barely pregnant, Dante. What if something happens?" "Nothing's going to happen." But his voice softened. "If something did, God forbid, I'd want my people to understand why I was taking time off. But nothing's going to happen, Sophia. I won't let it." As if he could control biology through sheer force of will. But somehow, his absolute certainty made her feel better. Lunch was at a restaurant she'd never heard of, the kind of place that didn't have prices on the menu, because if you had to ask, you couldn't afford it. The staff treated Dante like royalty, and Sophia noticed at least 3 men in dark suits stationed at various points around the dining room, his security being discreet. "Tell me about your family," she said once they'd ordered. "What should I expect on Sunday?" Dante leaned back in his chair, considering. "My grandmother is the matriarch. She's 83, sharp as a knife, and will probably ask you intrusive questions about your intentions toward me." "Your grandmother is worried about my intentions. She knows what I am. She'll want to make sure you can handle it." He reached across the table for her hand. "My Uncle Sal runs the legitimate businesses. He'll like you. His wife Rosa will love you, especially once she hears about the baby. They've been trying to marry me off for years. And your cousins? Tony and Gina, both younger than me, both mostly harmless. They'll probably try to embarrass me with childhood stories. His thumb stroked over her knuckles. They're good people, Sophia. Loyal. They'll protect you like your blood once they know you're mine. That's what I'm afraid of, she admitted. Being pulled deeper into this world. Into the violence and the danger. The violence stays away from family, Dante said firmly. That's the rule. Always has been. Our enemies know that crossing that line means total war. But accidents happen. Mistakes. Not to you. Never to you. His grip tightened. I'd burn this entire city to the ground before I let anyone touch you or our child. Do you understand me? The intensity in his eyes should have scared her. Instead, it sent a thrill down her spine. This man, this dangerous, powerful man, had chosen her. Loved her, even if he hadn't said the words yet. Would kill for her without hesitation. I understand, she whispered. Sunday arrived too quickly. Sophia changed outfits 3 times before settling on a navy blue dress that was elegant without being too formal. Dante watched from the doorway of the closet, amusement playing around his mouth. You look perfect, he said. Stop worrying. Easy for you to say. They're your family. Soon they'll be yours too. He crossed to her, hands settling on her shoulders. Sophia, they're going to love you. How could they not? The Moretti family home was in Brooklyn, a sprawling brownstone that had been in the family for 3 generations. The smell of garlic and tomato sauce hit Sophia the moment they walked through the door, along with the sound of raised voices arguing in Italian. That's normal, Dante murmured, guiding her toward the kitchen with a hand on her lower back. They argue about everything. The kitchen was warm and chaotic, with an older woman stirring a massive pot on the stove while a middle-aged couple set the table. They all stopped when Dante and Sophia entered. Dante! The woman at the stove, who had to be Rosa, immediately abandoned her cooking to envelope him in a hug. You're late. Your grandmother was about to send Sal to drag you here, and you must be Sophia. Before Sophia could respond, she was being hugged too. Rosa's ample frame surrounding her with warmth and the smell of basil. It's so wonderful to finally meet you, Rosa continued, pulling back to study Sophia's face. Dante hasn't brought a girl home since he was 17. We were starting to worry he'd die alone. Rosa, Sal warned from his position at the table, give the poor girl room to breathe. But Rosa was already pulling Sophia toward the stove. You sit right here and tell me everything. How did you meet? How long have you been together? Dante's been so secretive. Because I knew you'd do exactly this, Dante interrupted, but he was smiling. Where's Nonna? Living room with Tony and Gina. Fair warning, she's in a mood. Rosa turned back to Sophia. She's always in a mood, really. Don't let her intimidate you. But when Sophia met Nonna Moretti 5 minutes later, intimidation was unavoidable. The elderly woman sat in a high-backed chair like it was a throne, her black dress severe, her eyes sharp as she studied Sophia from head to toe. So, she said finally, her accent thick. This is the girl who finally caught my Dante. Nonna, Dante said, a warning in his voice. Be nice. I'm always nice. But her eyes never left Sophia. Come here, girl. Let me look at you properly. Sophia approached, trying not to show her nervousness. This woman had raised Dante after his mother died, had helped his father run an empire, was probably responsible for things Sophia didn't want to think about. You're not Italian, Nonna said, not quite an accusation, but close. No, ma'am. Irish and German on my mother's side. And your father? I never knew him. He left before I was born. Something flickered in Nonna's expression. So you understand what it means to grow up without a father, to have a mother who has to be both parents. Yes, ma'am. Nonna was quiet for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Good. Then you understand why family is important, why loyalty matters. She gestured to the sofa. Sit. Tell me how you met my grandson. Over the next hour, as the smell of Sunday dinner filled the house, and Tony and Gina asked increasingly embarrassing questions about Dante's courtship tactics, Sophia felt something unexpected happening. She was being absorbed into the family, not just accepted, but claimed. Rosa kept refilling her water glass and making sure she had enough to eat. Sal asked thoughtful questions about her bookstore. Even Nonna seemed to soften, especially when Sophia made her laugh with a story about Dante's failed attempt to help with inventory. It wasn't until they were gathered around the massive dining table, plates piled high with pasta and meatballs and fresh bread, that Dante made his announcement. "There's something we need to tell you all," he said, his hand finding Sophia's under the table. "Sophia and I are going to have a baby." The reaction was immediate and explosive. Rosa burst into tears of joy. Gina shrieked and jumped up to hug Sophia. Tony congratulated Dante with a series of backslaps that looked painful. Even Sal was grinning, but it was Nonna's reaction that mattered most to Sophia. The old woman sat very still for a moment, her eyes moving between Dante and Sophia. Then she smiled, really smiled, for the first time that afternoon. "About time," she said. "This family needs new blood, strong blood." She lifted her wine glass. "To Dante and Sophia, may your child inherit the best of both of you, and none of the Moretti stubbornness." "I'll drink to that," Dante murmured, and the table erupted in laughter. After dinner, while the others were arguing over dessert, Nonna pulled Sophia aside. "My grandson loves you," she said without preamble. "I can see it in how he looks at you, how he touches you, like you might disappear if he's not careful." "I love him too," Sophia admitted, "even though this world scares me sometimes." "It should scare you. It's a scary world." Nonna's hand, weathered and strong, gripped Sophia's. "But Dante will protect you. It's what the Moretti men do. They protect what's theirs, sometimes to the point of obsession. His father was the same way with his mother. I heard they were very much in love." "They were, until the cancer took her." Nonna's eyes grew distant. Dante watched his father fall apart after that. Become harder, colder. I think he always feared he'd end up the same way. But then he found you. I'm not sure I've fixed anything. You've given him a reason to live beyond the business, to build something instead of just maintain what his father created. Nonna squeezed her hand. "That's more than fixing, child. That's saving." That night, back in the penthouse, Sophia couldn't sleep. She stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows, looking out at the city lights, thinking about everything that had happened. A week ago, she'd been hiding a pregnancy test in the trash, planning her escape. Now she was engaged, living with Dante, accepted by his family. Can't sleep? Dante's arms wrapped around her from behind, his chin resting on her shoulder. Just thinking. About how fast everything changed, how scared I was, and how you didn't let me run. His arms tightened. "I'll never let you run, Sophia. You're stuck with me now." She turned in his embrace, looking up at his face in the dim light from the city below. "I'm glad you found that pregnancy test." "Liar. You were terrified." "I was," she agreed. "But maybe I needed to be terrified. Maybe I needed you to force my hand, because I was too scared to choose this on my own." "Choose what?" "You, us, this life." She reached up to touch his face. "I love you, Dante Moretti. I should have said it sooner, but I was afraid." He kissed her before she could finish, deep and demanding and full of everything he'd been holding back. When he finally pulled away, they were both breathless. "I love you too," he said against her lips. "Have since the night you told me your favorite book was Pride and Prejudice, because Elizabeth Bennet didn't let Mr. Darcy's money or status intimidate her. You remember that? I remember everything about you, the way you bite your lip when you're nervous, how you alphabetize everything, including your spice rack, the sound you make when I touch you right here." She laughed, catching his wandering hand. "I get it. You pay attention. Because you're worth paying attention to." He pressed a kiss to her forehead, then her nose, then her lips again. Marry me next month, before you start showing. I want you to have the wedding you deserve, not a rushed ceremony because we have to. Next month? Dante, that's barely enough time to plan. I'll hire the best wedding planner in New York. You'll have everything you want. Just say yes. She thought about arguing, about insisting on a longer engagement, on taking things slower. But what would be the point? They both knew where this was headed, had known from the beginning, even when she'd tried to deny it. Yes, she said, but I want to write my own vows. His smile was brilliant. Whatever you want, amore. Whatever you want. The wedding was beautiful and intimate, held in the garden of the Moretti family home with only close family and friends in attendance. Sophia wore ivory lace and carried white roses. Dante's eyes never left her as she walked down the makeshift aisle, and when he slipped the ring on her finger, his hand trembled just slightly. I vow to protect you, he said when it was time for his vows. To love you beyond reason and logic. To be the father our child deserves and the husband you need. You've made me believe in something beyond power and control. You've made me want to be better. And I vow to spend every day of my life proving I deserve you. By the time he finished, there wasn't a dry eye in the garden, including Sophia's. Her vows were simpler, but no less heartfelt. I vow to trust you, even when you're overwhelming. To love you, even when you're impossible. To raise our family with you and believe in the man you are beneath the reputation. You've given me safety and family and a future I never thought I could have. I vow to never hide from you again, to always choose us, even when I'm scared. I love you, Dante Moretti, today and always. When the priest pronounced them husband and wife, Dante's kiss was possessive and tender, a promise and a claim all at once. And as the small gathering erupted in applause, Sophia felt something inside her settle. This was right. All of it. The dangerous man, the chaotic family, the uncertain future. 4 months later, she sat in the same garden, her hand resting on her prominent baby bump, watching Dante argue with Tony about proper barbecue technique. Rosa was inside, probably cooking enough food to feed an army despite the fact that only 12 people were coming to dinner. Nonna dozed in her chair nearby, content. You look happy, Gina said, settling into the chair next to Sophia. Really happy. I am, Sophia admitted. It's strange. 6 months ago I was planning to run away. Now I can't imagine being anywhere else. That's the Moretti effect. They consume you completely. Gina smiled. But it's not so bad once you stop fighting it. No, Sophia thought, watching Dante laugh at something Sal said, his hand gesturing wildly as he made his point. It wasn't bad at all. That night, in their bedroom, Dante pressed his ear against her stomach, talking to the baby even though it was far too early for them to hear. Your mother tried to hide you from me, he murmured. Can you imagine? But I found you anyway, because Morettis don't lose what's important. And you, little one, are the most important thing I'll ever have, besides your mother. Sophia ran her fingers through his hair, overwhelmed with love for this complicated, dangerous, devoted man. Thank you, she said softly. He looked up at her. For what? For finding that pregnancy test, for not letting me run, for giving me this. Amore, he said, crawling up her body to kiss her properly. You gave me this. A family, a future, a reason to be more than just my father's son. His hand found her stomach again. I should be thanking you. Then we're even. We'll never be even. I'll spend the rest of my life trying to deserve you. He kissed her again, slow and deep, but I'll enjoy every minute of trying. Outside, the city lights glittered against the night sky, a million lives being lived, a million stories unfolding. But none of them mattered as much as this one, Sophia thought. The story of a girl who'd tried to run and the man who'd caught her, who'd found her secret and claimed it as his own, who'd turned her fear into love and her flight into forever. She'd tried to hide the pregnancy test in the trash, but Dante had found it, and in finding it, had found them, the family they'd become, and Sophia couldn't imagine it any other way. But the peace they'd found was about to shatter in the worst way possible. It happened on a Tuesday afternoon, 3 weeks after that perfect garden dinner. Sophia was at her bookstore, something she'd insisted on doing at least twice a week despite Dante's protests. She liked the normalcy of it, the quiet routine of helping customers and organizing shelves. Her security detail, 2 men named Marcus and James, waited outside as promised, giving her the illusion of independence, even though she knew they were tracking her every move. She was shelving new arrivals in the romance section, one hand unconsciously resting on her 6-month baby bump, when the bell above the door chimed. She looked up with her usual welcoming smile, then froze. The man who entered wasn't a customer. She knew that immediately from the way he moved, purposeful and predatory. He was tall, thin, with cold eyes that swept the empty store before landing on her. "Sophia Moretti," he said, and her married name sounded like a curse in his mouth. "We need to talk." Her hand instinctively moved to protect her stomach. "The store is closed for inventory. You need to leave." "I don't think so." He pulled out a gun casually, like it was a phone or a wallet. "Your security dogs outside are currently unconscious. Don't worry, they're not dead. Yet. But that depends entirely on how cooperative you are." Terror, white-hot and consuming, flooded through her. "What do you want?" "What I want is for Dante Moretti to suffer the way he made my brother suffer." The man moved closer, and Sophia backed up until she hit the bookshelf. "My name is Vincent Calabresi. Does that mean anything to you?" It did. She'd heard Dante mention the Calabresi family once, months ago. A rival organization that had tried to move into Moretti territory. Dante had shut them down hard, and their leader, Vincent's brother, had ended up dead in what the papers called a gang-related shooting. "I had nothing to do with that," Sophia said, trying to keep her voice steady. "I'm not part of his business." "But you're part of him." Vincent's smile was cruel. "You're his wife. You're carrying his child. And you're going to be the weapon I use to destroy him. He'll kill you for this. Maybe. But first he's going to watch everything he loves die." Vincent raised the gun, pointing it directly at her stomach. "Starting with his heir." Time seemed to slow. Sophia saw his finger tighten on the trigger, saw death coming for her baby, for her. And something inside her snapped. She wasn't going to die here, wasn't going to let this man take her child before they even had a chance to live. She grabbed the heavy hardcover book she'd been shelving and threw it at his face with all her strength. It connected with his nose with a satisfying crack. Vincent stumbled back, surprised, and Sophia ran. She didn't head for the front door where Marcus and James were supposedly unconscious. Instead, she ran for the back storage room, the one with the heavy door that locked from the inside. Behind her, she heard Vincent cursing, heard his footsteps pounding after her. She made it through the door and slammed it shut, fingers fumbling with the deadbolt. It clicked into place just as Vincent's body crashed against the other side. "You stupid—" The door shook with the force of his kicks. "This just makes it worse for you! Open this door!" Sophia's hands shook as she pulled out her phone. 3 missed calls from Dante, 2 texts asking if she was okay. She hit his number and pressed the phone to her ear, backing away from the door as Vincent continued to assault it. "Sophia?" Dante's voice was immediate, alert. "What's wrong?" "There's a man," she gasped out. "Vincent Calabresi. He has a gun. He said Marcus and James are unconscious. Dante, he was going to shoot—" Her voice broke. "He was going to shoot the baby." The silence on the other end lasted only a heartbeat, but in that heartbeat, she heard something transform in Dante. When he spoke again, his voice was absolutely devoid of emotion, and somehow that was more terrifying than if he'd been yelling. "Where are you right now?" "Storage room, back of the store. The door is locked, but he's trying to break through." "Is there another exit?" "No. Just the door he's at and the one to the main store. Another crash against the door. The frame was starting to splinter. "Listen to me very carefully," Dante said, and beneath the calm she could hear engines revving, tires squealing. He was already moving. "There's a fire extinguisher in that storage room, mounted on the wall near the electrical panel. Do you see it?" She looked around frantically. "Yes." "Take it down. When he breaks through that door, aim for his face and discharge it. Don't hesitate. Don't give him time to react. The chemicals will blind him temporarily. Then you run for the front door, and you don't stop. Do you understand? What if Marcus and James they're not dead. I have their vitals on my phone. They're unconscious, but alive. Sophia, I need you to focus. Can you do what I'm telling you?" The door cracked. Vincent was shouting something about how she was only making her death more painful. "Yes," she whispered. "Good girl. I'm 5 minutes away. 5 minutes. And then this is over. But you need to survive those 5 minutes. You need to fight." "I'm scared. I know. But you're also strong. Stronger than you think. You're a Moretti now. We don't surrender." His voice dropped lower, intimate despite the circumstances. "Fight for our baby, Sophia. Fight like hell, and I'll be there before you know it." The door splintered. She could see Vincent's hand reaching through, fumbling for the lock. "He's breaking through." "Then get ready. I love you. Remember that, whatever happens." "I love you." The line went dead as Vincent's hand found the deadbolt and wrenched it open. The door flew wide. He stood there, nose bleeding from where the book had hit him, gun raised, murder in his eyes. "You're going to regret that," he snarled. Sophia pulled the pin on the fire extinguisher and squeezed the handle. White foam erupted in a powerful stream, hitting Vincent square in the face. He screamed, hands going to his eyes, the gun wavering. Sophia didn't wait. She dropped the extinguisher and ran, ducking under his flailing arm, racing through the storage room door and across the bookstore floor. Behind her, Vincent was cursing, blind but not defeated. She heard him crash into something, heard the gun go off. The bullet hit somewhere behind her, shattering a window display. She reached the front door and yanked it open. Marcus and James were on the ground, just as Vincent had said, but they were breathing. She wanted to stop, to check on them, but Dante's voice echoed in her head. "Don't stop." She ran into the street. It was busy with afternoon traffic, people walking, cars honking, safety in numbers. She looked around frantically for help, for police, for anyone who could... "Sophia!" She turned. Vincent had made it out of the store, his face red and blistered from the chemicals, eyes streaming, but focused on her with deadly intent. The gun was raised again. Time crystallized. She saw him take aim. Saw pedestrians starting to notice, to scream and scatter. Saw her death coming and knew there was nowhere to run, no way to stop what was about to happen. Then a black Mercedes came out of nowhere, jumping the curb with a screech of tires. It positioned itself between Sophia and Vincent just as the gun fired. The bullet hit bulletproof glass with a sharp crack. The car door flew open and Dante emerged, followed by 4 other men in dark suits. But Sophia only had eyes for her husband. He looked like something out of a nightmare, his face a mask of controlled fury, a gun appearing in his hand from somewhere inside his jacket. "Get in the car," he said to Sophia without looking at her, his eyes locked on Vincent. "Now." She should have listened, should have gotten into the car and let him handle it. But her legs wouldn't move. She was frozen, watching as Dante walked toward Vincent Calabrese with the measured pace of an executioner. "You made a mistake," Dante said, his voice carrying across the street despite the chaos of screaming pedestrians and distant sirens. "A very big mistake." Vincent tried to aim at him, but his eyes were too damaged, his vision too compromised. Dante knocked the gun from his hand almost casually. "You came into my city," Dante continued, circling Vincent like a predator. You hurt my men. You threatened my wife. You pointed a gun at my unborn child. Each sentence was punctuated by a step closer. What made you think you would survive that? Your father killed my brother, Vincent spat, tears streaming down his chemically burned face. Someone had to pay. My father is dead. Your revenge is with him, not with innocent women and children. Dante's gun pressed against Vincent's forehead. But since you decided to make this personal, let me tell you what's going to happen. You're going to disappear, not quickly, not painlessly. And when they eventually find what's left of you, every other family in this city is going to remember why you don't touch a Moretti's family. Sophia watched, unable to look away, as Dante's men grabbed Vincent. As they dragged him toward a second black car that had pulled up. As the man who'd tried to kill her and her baby was thrown inside like garbage. Then Dante was there, his hands on her face, his eyes scanning her for injuries. Did he hurt you? Did he touch you? Is the baby... We're okay, she managed. Dante, I was so scared. I know. He pulled her against him, one hand cradling her head, the other protective over her stomach. But it's over. He can't hurt you now. No one can. Police sirens were getting closer. Dante's men were already dispersing, disappearing into the afternoon crowd like ghosts. By the time the first patrol car arrived, there was only Dante and Sophia standing on the sidewalk, and Marcus and James beginning to stir from whatever knockout drug Vincent had used on them. The story they told the police was simple. An attempted robbery, a concerned husband arriving just in time. The perpetrator fled before law enforcement could arrive. Marcus and James, once conscious, corroborated everything. The security footage from inside the store had mysteriously malfunctioned that afternoon. No one mentioned Vincent Calabrese by name. No one would ever mention him again. At the hospital, Dr. Chen did a full examination while Dante stood by, his hand never leaving Sophia's. The baby was fine. Heartbeat strong. No signs of distress. Sophia was in mild shock, but physically unharmed. You're very lucky, Dr. Chen said, though his eyes lingered on Dante with an expression that suggested he knew luck had nothing to do with it. Both of you. I'd recommend bed rest for a few days, just to be safe. She'll have bed rest for a week, Dante said. At minimum. That night, back at the penthouse, Sophia finally let herself fall apart. She sat on the edge of the bed and shook, the terror she'd been holding back flooding through her in waves. Dante held her through it, whispering reassurances, his own hands not entirely steady. I'm sorry, he said into her hair. This is my fault. My life. My enemies. You were right to want to run. Don't. She pulled back to look at him. Don't you dare apologize for saving us, for being there when we needed you. I should have been there sooner. Should have had more security. Should have... You can't protect me from everything, Dante. The world is dangerous. Your world is dangerous. But that man, Vincent, he made his own choices. Not you. He came after you because of me. And he failed because of you. Her hand found his face, made him meet her eyes. You told me to fight. You gave me instructions that kept me alive until you could get there. And then you ended it. You protected our family. That's all that matters. He was quiet for a long moment, processing. Then he pulled her close again, his lips finding her forehead, her cheeks, finally her mouth in a kiss that tasted like desperation and relief. I'm doubling your security, he said against her lips, and you're not going back to the bookstore until after the baby is born. She wanted to argue, wanted to insist on her independence, her right to live her life. But the memory of Vincent's gun pointed at her stomach was too fresh, too raw. Okay, she whispered, but only until after the baby comes. We'll discuss it then. His hand found her stomach again, that familiar protective gesture. God, Sophia, when you called, when I heard the fear in your voice, I thought... He stopped, his jaw working. I've never been that scared in my life." "Welcome to parenthood," she said with a weak laugh. "I think this is just the beginning of being terrified. Then we'll be terrified together." He pressed a kiss to her stomach, talking to the baby again. "Your mother is the bravest person I know. Today she fought off a man with a gun using a book and a fire extinguisher. When you're older, I'm going to tell you that story every chance I get. Despite everything." Sophia smiled. "You're going to embarrass me in front of our child?" "Constantly. It's a father's prerogative." He looked up at her, something vulnerable in his expression. "You really are okay? You're not just saying that to make me feel better?" "I'm okay. Shaken, but okay." She took his hand, pressed it firmly against her belly. "We both are. Because of you." Over the next few days, as Sophia recovered from the shock, the true extent of Dante's response became clear. 3 rival families reached out to pledge their neutrality and condolences. A truce that had been shaky for months suddenly solidified. The streets of New York became noticeably quieter, as if every criminal organization had collectively decided that now was not the time to test the Moretti family's patience. Sophia never asked what happened to Vincent Calabresi. She didn't need to. The message had been sent and received. Touch Dante Moretti's family, and there were consequences worse than death. But more than that, something had shifted between them. The attack had proven what Sophia had been too afraid to fully believe before. Dante didn't just love her. He would move heaven and earth to protect her. Would burn down the world if that's what it took to keep her safe. And she'd proven something, too. To herself, to Dante, to anyone watching. She wasn't just some civilian who'd stumbled into a crime lord's life. She was Sophia Moretti. And Morettis didn't break. They fought. 2 months later, when her water broke at 3 a.m, Dante drove her to the hospital with one hand on the wheel and one hand holding hers, probably breaking several traffic laws in the process. The security detail following them could barely keep up. The labor was long and difficult, but every time Sophia thought she couldn't go on, Dante was there. Whispering encouragement, letting her squeeze his hand until his fingers went numb, looking at her like she was performing a miracle, which she supposed she was. At 4:47 p.m. on a cold December afternoon, Sophia gave birth to a healthy baby boy. 7 pounds, 6 ounces, with his father's dark hair and his mother's eyes. They named him Antonio, after Dante's grandfather, with the middle name James after Sophia's favorite bookstore customer who'd passed away the year before. When the nurse placed Antonio in Dante's arms for the first time, Sophia watched her dangerous, ruthless husband transform. He stared down at his son with an expression of such pure wonder and love that tears pricked her eyes. "Hello, little one," Dante whispered. "I'm your father, and I promise you, right here, right now, that I will spend every day of my life making sure you never have to be afraid. That you can be better than me, kinder than me. That you can choose your own path, whatever that might be." He looked up at Sophia, his eyes bright with unshed tears. "Your mother already knows this, but she's the strongest person I've ever met. And between the two of us, you're going to be unstoppable." Antonio yawned, tiny and perfect, and Dante laughed. Actually laughed, the sound filling the hospital room with pure joy. Later, when visiting hours brought the entire Moretti family crowding into the room, Sophia watched them pass the baby around. Watched Rosa cry, and Nonna smile, and Gina coo over tiny fingers and toes. Watched Sal clap Dante on the back and Tony make jokes about dirty diapers. This was her family now. Loud and chaotic, and sometimes dangerous, but hers. And she wouldn't change it for anything. That night, after everyone had left, and Antonio was sleeping peacefully in his bassinet, Dante climbed carefully into the hospital bed beside Sophia. "Thank you," he said quietly. "For what?" "You did half the work getting him here." "For fighting that day in the bookstore. For not giving up, not letting Vincent win." His arm wrapped around her shoulders, pulling her against his chest. for giving me this, a son, a family, a reason to be more than what I was. You were always more than what you were, she said. I just helped you see it. Maybe. He pressed a kiss to her hair, but I'm going to spend the rest of my life being grateful anyway. They lay like that for a while, watching their son sleep, listening to the quiet beeps of hospital equipment and the distant sounds of the city beyond the window. And Sophia thought about that day 6 months ago, when she'd hidden a pregnancy test in the trash. How scared she'd been. How certain she was that running was the only answer. She'd been so wrong. Because this, right here, was everything she'd never known she wanted. A husband who loved her fiercely. A son who held infinite possibility. A family that would protect them both with everything they had. She'd tried to hide from her future. But Dante had found it, claimed it, and made it theirs. And now, holding her sleeping son while her husband held her, Sophia finally understood what it meant to be a Moretti. It meant never running from the things that scared you. It meant fighting for what mattered, no matter the cost. It meant loving with everything you had, consequences be damned. It meant being home,